Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. And today I'm going to be taking a look at a brand new 2024 release from one of the greatest sax players of all time and a musician who has been a major force on the scene for well over 3 decades, and a gentleman who, quite frankly, in my opinion, needs no introduction whatsoever. I am talking about, of course, the one and only world-renowned saxophonist, composer, and bandleader, Chris Potter, and this is his newest recording for Edition Records, Eagles Point. So, Eagles Point marks the first time since 2021's Sunrise Reprise that Chris Potter has recorded and released an album featuring new material. And Chris Potter also put out a live album back in 2023 called Got the Keys to the Kingdom, live at the Village Vanguard. And Eagles Point, for me, is an album that I have been waiting for Chris Potter to put out ever since the first time I heard him. And Chris Potter has been on a very amazing and interesting ride since playing with Pat Metheny back in 2012. Ever since Chris Potter played with Pat Metheny, for my money, Chris Potter has put out some of his best music ever for well over a decade. And it's almost like, in a way, after playing with Pat Metheny, Chris Potter has completely transformed for the better. He's gone from being a great sax player to the greatest sax player. And I say that with a very straight face because, we've had so many great sax players over the years, but for me, Chris Potter could very well be the most important voice for the saxophone since the late great Michael Brecker. Now, lots of people have said that, well, Chris Potter isn't Michael Brecker. They're nothing alike. That is very true. They're nothing alike. But in terms of importance, I can't think of anyone else who embodies the spirit of Michael Brecker quite like Chris Potter. Now, for Eagles Point, if someone said to me, put together your own dream band of musicians, who would it be? It would be Chris Potter, John Patitucci, Brad Mehldau, and Brian Blade. We got it. We got the dream team. This is what we've got. The all-star quartet of all all-star quartets. Chris Potter has returned with, for my money, probably the best album he has ever put out. And you think about that for a second. You think about all of the great albums Chris Potter has put out in his long, illustrious career. He's done some amazing stuff, but for me, Eagles Point could very well be Chris Potter's best album to date. And Chris Potter, John Patitucci, Brad Mehldau, and Brian Blade are no strangers to one another. They've all played together, they've all collaborated with one another in various different situations over the years. In fact, this group of guys were all featured on John Patitucci's 2001's Communion album. Bear in mind that they didn't all play together, but just the fact that they were all on the same album under John Patitucci's name, that says a lot. So it was obvious that these four outstanding musicians were destined to play together and make an album. And individually, these guys have seen it all, done it all, and played with just about everyone you can imagine. Chris Potter, as I mentioned, one of the most important voices for the saxophone. Brad Mehldau, one of the most important voices for the piano, and certainly the heir to the Keith Jarrett and Chick Corea throne. John Patitucci, one of the greatest bass players of all time. He's played with the Chick Corea Electric Band, the Chick Corea Acoustic Band, and the Wayne Shorter Quartet, and many other big names. And of course, Brian Blade, he's played with Wolfgang Musville, Wayne Shorter, Kurt Rosenwinkel, you name it. Brian Blade is one of the greatest drummers of all time, and John Patitucci and Brian Blade are no strangers to one another. They were a huge part of the Wayne Shorter Quartet, which they were members of for well over 2 decades. And they're also members of the Children of the Light band with pianist Dineno Perez. So these guys all know each other really well. And listening to Eagles Point several times already, I can honestly tell you now that this album is probably the most laid back album that Chris Potter has ever put out. And listening to it, it's kind of very similar to the Yellow Jackets, minus all the keyboards, electronics, and, you know, orchestral elements that the Yellow Jackets are known for. This is very much a stripped down acoustic affair. Imagine Yellow Jackets unplugged. That's kind of what this album is, but at the same time, completely different. Yellow Jackets music is much more adventurous, but at times very elegant. Eagles Points is all of that, but much more sophisticated. Not saying that the Yellow Jackets aren't sophisticated, they are, but just different. They embrace more of the fusion elements. Eagles Point embraces more of the traditional jazz roots, so to speak. And these four musicians have never sounded better than they do in each other's company. So we've got Chris Potter on tenor and soprano saxophone and bass clarinet, John Patitucci on bass, Brad Mehldau on piano, and Brian Blade on drums. Excellent stuff, and this is a fine showcase for four outstanding musicians at the top of their game, and everybody really brings their A game and they don't disappoint. And I wouldn't expect anything but the absolute best from four musicians who continue to not only excite fans worldwide, but always give 100% in everything they do. And individually, these guys absolutely rock, and together as a band, they have never sounded better. Chris Potter, so highly versatile on tenor, soprano, and bass clarinet. Brad Mehldau brings so much classy and elegance to his piano playing. Brian Blade brings very much of that sophisticated, laid back drumming that he's known for. And John Patitucci, for me, he has never sounded better than he does in this environment. He sounds great in every situation he's in, but for me, he could be the standout guy of this quartet. All due respect to Potter, Mehldau, and Blade, but Patitucci, he's just absolutely on fire on bass. And as I said, in this sort of environment, Patitucci always excels, and he delivers rock solid bass work and gorgeous solos all throughout the music. He's got a big presence, as do all of the four musicians on this album. So let's have a look, shall we? So all of the compositions are written and composed by Chris Potter. And there they are. The A-Team, as I like to call them. And this album, Eagles Point, is just fantastic. So we got Dream of Home, absolutely gorgeous. Cloud Message, another great track. Indigo Ilodico, which has got this very rich, deep bass clarinet sound, which kind of harkens to Bob Mintzer. Absolutely beautiful. Then we got the title track, Eagles Point. Aria for Anna, another great track as well. Other Plans is another great song. Malaga Moon, another great track. And Horizon Dance. Top-notch songs from start to finish. Absolutely brilliant. Everybody sounds incredible. Chris Potter, what more can you say, really? The guy is is an absolute beast on the saxophone. He just switches between tenor, soprano, and bass clarinet. He's just a machine. Patitucci, rock solid bass player. Brad Mehldau, very classy, elegant pianist, and Brian Blade, just an amazing jazz drummer as far as I'm concerned. All four musicians have never sounded better than they do here. And as I said, John Patitucci is probably the standout guy on this album, but the other three are no slouches, far from it. And there's one track here where you get to hear Potter and Mehldau play as a duo, or at least for the first half of the track, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. And for me, it's one of many highlights on Eagles Point. It's just absolutely pure elegance and world class musicianship. So the standout tracks for me are Dream of Home, Cloud Message, Indigo Dico, the title track, Other Plans, and Horizon Dance. But every track from start to finish is incredibly strong. No duff tracks, no weak links in this band whatsoever. It does not get any better than Chris Potter, John Patitucci, Brad Mehldau, and Brian Blade. So, highly recommended if you're a fan of all four of these guys. This is the album for you, and it was definitely well worth the wait. So, there you have it, Chris Potter, Eagles Point. For my money, probably Chris Potter's strongest album to date, and one of the standouts of 2024. Tremendous stuff, and one of my all-time favourite Chris Potter albums I have ever had the privilege of listening to. And when it's all said and done, this could very well be my favourite album from Chris Potter. It's so damn good. So there you have it. Chris Potter, Eagles Point, excellent stuff from one of the greatest sax players of all time. Love it. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What's your favourite track from Chris Potter, Eagles Point? Is it Dream of Home, Cloud Message, Indigo Iddico, Eagles Point, Aria for Anna, Other Plans, Malaga Moon, or Horizon Dance? Or do you enjoy the entire album? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. So until then, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.